He needs to rest to be able to go on. That's how we finished. We're up to Mamash. We're really at the end of the chapter. We're in Pasuk Yud Bet, and Be'emet the Malbim has a couple more concepts that he's going to say that are important for us. But towards the end, three more major ideas, and then we're going to go. So what we do is let's Be'emet open up the Tnachim, just so we'll know what we're talking about. Say that. To the very end of Shir HaShirim, Perek Bet of Shir HaShirim. Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs. Kol Asfarim Kodesh. No, finish the line. Kol Asfarim Kodesh ve Shir HaShirim Kodesh Kodeshim. Shir HaShirim is the Holy of Holies. Who said that? Rabbi Akiva, yes. Listen. Tov. So we talked about Ki Neh Stav Avar Geshem Chalaf Halach Lo. Nachon? And we said there how he had the Chochmat Botanik. Remember, I just love his English words or whatever words he is, wherever he's from. He says even in nature, things have to be dormant before they flower. And he talked about how there is a rest. If you guys remember the end, right, the flashes of lightning, if you maybe jog your memory, we talked about. Anyone remember this? You were in here. You remember? Yeah, the flashes of lightning that sometimes people, he quoted the Rambam of how Moshe Rabbeinu had like flashes, always had flashes. Well, most normal people have a flash and it could be years before the next one. Like he says with Shlomo. It could be once in a lifetime. These are events that when you're sunning, everything's illuminated. But he says inherently you need the rest, you need the break in between. In other words, no human can continuously be in this ha'ara, in this awareness of Hashem. It cannot be. There has to be these breaks, and the breaks, just he says, like sleep for the body, and like winter for plants. All these things, they need a time of gestation in the body before they could come out and bring things. So this was a new concept of spirituality. Spirituality needs rest.
He explains why.
He says this is a chok teva. It's a natural law. Okay? It's a natural law. You could understand it by the intensity of the prophetic experience. The intensity of the prophetic experience is one that, right, where the Rambam talks about, and we'll see it later next chapter, how the whole body falls apart. You guys remember we talked about it? In other words, that you can't do that forever. That's impossible. Moshe Rabbeinu is at this level, but Moshe is a different story. So we're never really talking about Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu is his own unique category. But normal human beings need the rest. I think it's very important. First of all, it's important because we often tend to see rest as, rest is for weak people. Rest is for people who can't keep on going. And it's really not that. Shabbat in its essence includes in it this element. In other words, Shabbat, where Hashem stops 6 days of action and then a day of stopping. It's always a question, right? Is Shabbat the end of 6 days, or it's the beginning of 6 days? Like, where do you put Shabbat? Is it the end or the beginning? You got me? Is it the beginning of the week or the end of the week? You call it weekends. Machon? We call it weekends. We usually sort of see it as the end, but on the other hand, it's the first day of the next week. It's the beginning of the thing. And it gives koach to the week. Now, Shabbat in itself is important, and the rest that happens on it is important in itself. It's its own avodah. But part of the avodah it has, it allows things to sink in. It allows you to contemplate the things that you've gone through that you have to do very quickly. And on a basic level, it allows a rest. And really, that's what happens. Many chachmei ha-moach, people who talk about mind, they talk about how sleep is necessary for comprehension. That the mind works very much during the day, and the rest period is when the mind can sort of just like, okay, now let me sort of make order, even as we sleep, make order of the things that happen. In other words, there's a necessity for this break for things to really seep in. So the Malbim is using this as an example of the period between Shlomo's prophecies was necessary. It was necessary. he needed this break. It couldn't have happened immediately, even though the second prophecy that we're talking about now is a lower level prophecy. Okay? So that was just a hashlama of last time. Now he starts talking about the springtime. So it's springtime now, and things are starting to flower again. Right? This is the imagery. So if we look at the psukim, let's look at the psukim, okay? I'm going to read from Yud Aleph. Yud Aleph is what I just talked about now. Now Yud Bet is what we're going to see next. Okay, so Yud Aleph. Ki hinei stav avar, hageshem chalaf halach lo. The fall is over, the winter is over, the rains have gone away. Hanitzanim niru ba'aretz. Now the buds are starting to appear. Et hazamir higia, the time of the birds has arrived. V'kol hator nishma ba'artzenu. And the sound of the songbirds, you can start hearing them. These are all elements of beginning to flower. The te'ena, the fig tree, the smadar, the grapes. They're starting to give a smell. Kumi lach rayati yafati ulechilach. Now it's time to reawaken. Now he brings another mashal. Okay, so this is the first mashal. This is the first parable of winter that turns to spring and time to awaken together with all the powers of the spring. And now there's another. Yonati b'chegvei asela b'seter hamajega har'ini et mar'ayich hashmini et kolech ki kolech harev u'marech naveh. This is the second mashal, and there's the third mashal. Okay, the second mashal is a dove. My dove who is hidden in the rock. Please show me your mar'ayich, your appearance. Let me hear your voice, because your voice is special. Arev is wonderful, is wanted or beautiful. I don't know, how does he translate Arev? As it sweet. Umarech naveh, and your view is beautiful. The Malbim is going to play off here on the switching of mar'ech and kolech. Look how he plays around within the pasuk. Right, Yonadi b'chagvei asela, my dove in the cliffs of the rock, v'seter hamadrega, hidden under the steps in the stone. Har'ini et mar'ayich, hashmini et kolech. Show me your appearance and let me hear your voice. And then it says ki kolech arev u'marech naveh. It flips it around because your voice is sweet and your appearance is beautiful. Why does it flip? It goes for, again, first mar'eh, kol, appearance, sound, voice, appearance. So he's going to play around what each one of these means, the mar'eh and the kol. Okay, what are the two? What they symbolize, and in vis-a-vis what we're supposed to be attaining through prophecy. And then the last part of the chapter is the last mashal. Chazulanu shualim ktanim mechablim kramim. So it's an interesting how the Malbim is going to play off this also. There are small foxes that are damaging the kramim, the vineyards, and our vineyard is still young. And the ending, Dodi livani lo areh b'shoshanim. My beloved is for me, and I'm for him. The one who is a shepherd in the rose bushes or the lily bushes. Pretty much this is goodbye. Okay, the last pasuk says, until I'm ready, go off. And Bamet the Malbim here says, that's it. That was Hashem disappears from Shlomo, and that's going to be it until we meet the next one, which is Perek Gimel. Is going to be a long one. I want to say Perek Gimel is going to begin a new take on this. Perek Gimel is going to be an attempt to have prophecy, or at least be in a spiritual state for longer. Okay, that's what's going to happen. It's going to be connected to the Mikdash. That's going to happen after this. Okay, the attainment of the Mikdash is going to allow some kind of, if we talked about before, the lightning strikes and the break in between, is going to try to form some kind of continuous experience that he's going to say is a possibility. It may not be prophetic, and therefore it's not like these lightning bolts, but there's some way of retaining the spirituality of the physical of the prophetic experience and keeping it with you. Now he's going to talk about Perek Gimel, Dalet, Hey. We're going to deal with those. That we'll see Bezrat Hashem. Probably not this time. Yeah, next time. Tov, let's go back. Okay, so we're Pasuk Yud Bet. And he's going to talk about the two phases of the neshama. It's important in Kabbalistic terms what we're going to learn today a little bit. He's going to talk about different parts of soul that are referenced in many different Kabbalistic works. Okay, so I'm in Yud Bet. You guys with me in the Malbim Yud Bet? Ani tzanim. Mosif od. שגם החלו הזרעים אלוהים אשר נזרעו. It's here. מוסיף עוד, starting again, מוסיף עוד, שגם החלו הזרעים האלוהים, אשר נזרעו בנפש בעת חול עליה הרוח. So he adds that the seeds that were planted in the soul when they had the prophetic experience, שבימי הסתיו ותרדמת הנפש התעלמו והיו בה בכוח, that were only in potential in the winter months, or the time in between the prophecies. So they begin to להתגלות לצאת אל הפועל, עד שנראו בארץ. So they start being apparent. מוסיף עוד שעת הזמיר הגיע. רצונו לומר כי הנפש אלוהית יש בה שתי מדרגות. So we're going to have two levels. We're going to have הניצנים נראו בארץ and עת הזמיר. The buds are begun and it's time of the songbirds. What are the buds and what are the songbirds? Okay, here we go. Ready? הנפש האלוהית יש בה שתי מדרגות. The godly soul has two levels. Aleph, neshama asher baguf הבלתי נפרדת ממנו כל ימי חייו. Now, anyone who knows the Tanya, who divides things up into 5 different levels and talks about the nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, yechida. I don't know if they're called niran chai. Talking about the different levels of soul. So he's being a little more klali, I would say, more general, okay? And he's talking about 2 parts. There's a neshama. The neshama is the godliness that remains with the body at all times. It never disappears. It never goes away, okay? It could be dormant. You could not feel it. But sometimes it could be prevalent. It could be there, okay? That's because that's anitzanim niru baretz. That's inside your godly soul. Sometimes the soul itself could be more revealed. That's the budding that he's talking about. That's the budding of the bushes when your soul is revealed. Okay, it's a high level of spirituality, but it's limited. Look at the next one. Madrega gvoha, the second, nikret chaya v'yechida. Okay, these are another level. Haba elav mimarom lefi ma'asav u'kedushato. V'nifredet mimenu be'et asta v'tardemat hanefesh. So he divides into a continuous godly state, which is the neshama. This is his terminology, the neshama. Probably heard the word neshama before, right? The neshama. And 2 other parts of godly connection to man, which are called chaya and yechida. Now, he's not really going to go into them so much, what they are. But he's talking about these man receives according to his actions. These are not given to you all the time. These are given according to what you do and how you mitkarev, and when Hashem wants to give them to you. Okay, it's like, in other words, so if I put the 3 bottom ones, nefesh, ruach, neshama, that the Malbim seems to include all in the world, neshama, these are your given spirituality. These, every single one of us has them right now. Okay? How much they're revealed, how much they're felt, how much they come to fruition. Each one to his own. Okay? But when you get to a higher level, then we could receive from Hashem another sort of part of our soul. It's sort of interesting. In other words, our soul has I would say it's sort of like a human contained soul, and then it could get like an extra charge in it. It's sort of like a lot of mashalim, a lot of interesting parables you can give. Like Hashem adds on a battery to that. It's still compatible with our soul mamash, but it's not necessarily there until it's given to us, and that you receive according to the rewards of your action. So it's obviously where we're trying to get to, but it's only according to what we do. So though, והנה הנשמה, במדרגה הראשונה דומה כציפור הזמיר, שבית הסתיו אינו מזמר, ובכל זאת לא יתרחק ממדינתו, רק תשכון כיונה בעברי פי פחד בחגבי הסלע, כן בעד תרדמת הנפש והשכל תשכון בגבייה, והיא נעלמה ולא תשורר. Okay, he says, this is the neshama. The neshama, it's there. It's like a hidden dove in the clefts of the rock. It's there. It's hidden. It's there, but it's not so present. You don't feel it so much. ואמר כי אתה, כי הקיצה הנפש מתרדמתה, את הזמיר הגיע, כי תשיר את שיר השם, ותתנסה בנעים זמירות הנבואה וההשכלה, שהוא שיר הנפש. So he says, once the awakening, Hashem sort of, this whole second prophecy, they explain that there are two prophecies mentioned here. This is the second prophecy Shlomo received, and we said it's coming from Shammai, right? So Hashem's sort of like whistling to it. It's like waking it up. It's like saying, go on. And the neshama sort of awakens to this call. You said there? And when the neshama starts really moving, then the chaya and yechida can approach. ומוסיף לאמור שגם כל התור שהיא מדרגת חיה ויחידה הנשפט ממרום, that comes from שמיים, שעדתה התרחקה מפני הסתיו לארץ צלצל כנפיים ולאומני שחקים, עתה נשמע קולה. At first it was hidden in the sky, it didn't come down. עתה נשמע קולה בארצנו, כי שבה לשכון כבוד על ידי התעורר הרוח הקודש. So this is the Malbim going a little bit into the minutiae of prophecy. In other words, sometimes you have to light your soul. You have to light your soul. Now, how do you light your soul? It's an interesting question. The Malbim says even lighting your soul sometimes is godly. In other words, we sort of say, light your soul down here, and Hashem will approach you from up there. But even to light your soul, you need Hashem's help. So it's not legamre man-made. Let's put it that way. There's something that is needed to teach. That's why some people talk about having to daven, right? People talk about the Chassidut, I hear from the Rabbi Migur, but I imagine others say it also, that before you daven to Hashem that He'll let you daven. It's an interesting point, right? We sort of see prayer as our motion. Torah is from Hashem to us. Prayer is from us to Hashem. Avodah shebalev, it's avodah, right? It's chayei sha'ah. These are things that have to deal with my life. I pray about things that are connected to me. Refuah, parnasa, shalom, slicha, all these things that we say in Shemona Esrei, right? All the parts of prayer, forgiveness and healing and all the different things, and sustainability, all these things. We say it's coming from us. We pray to Hashem, and we hope Hashem answers us. But there's something about prayer itself, this awakening to Hashem, that also needs Hashem's help. So the neshama here, and that's the neshama. So the prayer here is the neshama, the soul that turns towards God. That needs to be awakened, and it needs a little help from Hashem. But it's more man-made. When you pass that level, then Hashem answers you. The answer that comes, or the connection that comes after it doesn't have to be prayer, but prayer is a good example. The connection we feel from Hashem there, that He hears us, that's already in the realm of Chaya and Yechida. That's another connection. Okay.
So the dove here is talking about neshama.
The dove is the neshama as it wakes, and the tor is the Chaya Yechida.
And the sound and to see HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the neshama is talking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Can, for sure. That's the first shlav, all right. The zamir is the neshama. Kol hator is the chaya yechida. That's Hashem sends it out.
The face and the sound that you're going to hear is about HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
1 second. Hanitzanim niru ba'aretz. That's the beginning of the soul. Eta zamir higir. The soul, the neshama begins to sing. The kol hator nishma ba'artzenu. That's the chaya yechida. That's Hashem's presence already. Okay? Now, it's confusing here. So I don't know if you guys are confused as I am, but there's a little bit of confusion here between where's Hashem here? Like, what exactly? I think Hashem appears, the neshama. It's a little mixed up. Remember, what did he say about the neshama? Do you guys remember? He said the neshama is a real part of God. It's mamash a part of God. It's not a mistake. It's not like man nice. It's really a part of Hashem. So there's like different levels of connection to Hashem that we have. The neshama is our limited connection. I remember our conscious connection to Hashem. The chaya yichida is already a different level.
Wait, Chaya means
Chaya means living.
living, and Yichida?
Yichida means one. Okay, like Yachid. Okay, so on some level, the Yichida is the complete immersion in God.
So this verse is talking about the dog, that is our neshama. And you want to see the face of the neshama and hear the voice of the neshama?
You want to hear you want the neshama to sing. And when the neshama sings, Hashem answers it. Kol haTorah nishma b'aretz. Hashem with the higher levels, the higher levels of your soul get answered from there. Beseder? All right. Beseder. Tov. Beseder. Now he talks here about the teina and the gefen, and he talks about the different parts of what is more comes into fruition, what's not. I'm going to jump over this. I don't think it's quite as important here. What he does say at the end, he says at the end of Pasuk Gimel, the last line, he says, he connects it back to Shlomo's reality. And he says, this nevuah, we know when it was said. It was said in Chodesh Ziv. Okay? Chodesh Ziv, what do we say? Which Chodesh was that? You guys remember? So the second, Iyar. It's Chodesh Iyar. It's Be'emet the spring. Okay? And he says, ולקח משל מן השינויים שיעשה הירח הזה בתולדות האדמה, אלא שינויים שיעשה הגלות זיו השם והדרו על נפש ותולדותיה. Says the Malbim, Shlomo is inspired by the physical, the state of nature in his time. In other words, when he's trying to word out, to spell out what's happening to him in the prophecy, he's using what he sees. That's why he's talking about the spring and the buds, because that's when it was. He was in the spring. That's why he uses it. I mean, why did he use this mashal and not any other mashal? There are lots of mashalim, a lot of parables you can use, a lot of metaphors you can use. He says Shlomo was affected by the situation he was in. Now, when you read that first, you can say, okay, that's a nice historical kind of statement. It's nice. He used what it was. It makes sense. But I think there's something deeper in that. And here I think that it's a two-way street. What is that? What do I mean? It means sometimes we can talk about something as a metaphor. Right? We can talk about something like Shlomo was in the spring. The spring is beautiful. The spring gives you all these feelings. It fits very much into the prophetic experience he was experiencing now. Yafeh. That means there is spring, and there's a prophetic experience, and there's sort of a remind of one another. Another sentence it says there's something inherent in the spring. There's something inherent in the spring that is like this prophetic experience. In other words, this experience may not have been able to happen in the winter. Even though lich'ora, mazim shaneh, if it's the spring or the winter, if Hashem appears to you, Hashem appears to you. But sometimes, and I think this is what he's alluding to, that we could read it backwards. In other words, if this is prophecy, if this is what prophecy is like, that means the spring has a potential of prophecy that maybe the winter doesn't have. The seasons and nature and to extrapolate further, the events that happen to us, they don't happen to us. They're really sort of like a possibility of our connection with Hashem. I get mad at my friend, and I'm thinking another friend, I get mad at my friend. We have a fight with my friend. I could view this as, okay, I had a fight with my friend. Oh, this is like sometimes when I get mad at Hashem. No. There's an element of getting mad at Hashem that's happening right now when you're getting mad with your friend. This is an event that's happening both here and here. Many of our spiritualists, our Kabbalists, talk about this double experience. In other words, there's an experience we have in this world. They say, stop. Don't stop. No, nafuch. Don't stop here. there's something happening also at the same time on a higher level. You can even work on two levels now. This is how they say, I love my child. That love can be now said, I also love Hashem. Take it, raise it. The Baal Shem Tov talks about doing this action. Take the love you have right now and focus it on Hashem. It's real. It's really happening now. It's not a parable. It's not a metaphor. It's really happening now. You can like infuse what's happening right now with another meaning. It could go the other way too. Your love for Hashem may also now spread to your love for someone else. All right. When you talk about Kabbalah, one of the explanations of Kabbalah is Hakbalah, a parallelism. The word Hakbalah is parallel. That one of the understandings of Kabbalah is that there are parallels happening in the world. Things that are happening here are happening there too. They are happening whether you're aware of them or not. Kabbalah invites you to experience it at the same time. In other words, you go out, right? The great Rambam, right? Where you go out and you see the creation. And you get so filled with ecstatic. It's amazing to see the views and nature and sunrises and sunsets and the stars and the moon. The Rambam, you stand there and you're in awe. You're in awe. That's where you get the awe of Hashem. That's the Yirat Hashem, Avat Hashem. These two things go together. So Kabbalah would say it's really there happening at the same time. Your awe of your tininess of creation can be flipped into your awe of the tininess Mul Hashem. At the same time, Mamash, you could flip it. You could do it in your mind. It's a targil. It's a practice that can be done. You work on it. Rabbi talks about you giving this emotion, flip it to Hashem. You're happy, flip it towards Hashem. You're sad, flip it towards Hashem. Flip it means because it's really happening now. It's not the ki'ilu. So I think part of what the Malbim is saying here, at least I'm taking what he's saying here. I'm not sure that's what he meant, but he's definitely I could say this in him. Is he's saying the spring is inherent. It's not. You should be awakening in the spring because it's real. It's not just a metaphor. It's really an opportunity to say that to do this now. Okay, there's a spiritual experience of the winter too. And of the summer. But the seasons aren't stam. They're not there to find nice lines for poems. It's real events happening in the world that you could be connected to the specifics of this time. That's what we say about the Chagim. That's why Chassidut talks about the Chagim all the time. That on Pesach, there is a real opportunity to experience Geulah. It's not ki'ilu when we sit there and we say, oh, if I was there, it's like ki'ilu, I was in Mitzrayim. You really can get out of Mitzrayim. What is Mitzrayim for you? It's your Mitzarim, it's your limitations, whatever. On Shavuot, you can really receive the Torah. Really, like they did on Har Sinai. It's not ki'ilu. It's not a remembrance. It's an event that happens again. It's a spiritual spigot that opened up. Now, every time this year, Chanukah, Purim, Tu B'Shvat, whatever it is, these times allow these things to happen. But again, I brought it furthermore. The things that happen to us in our lives are opportunities to delve deeper and experience something godly. Okay, it's hard work. I'm not talking here from too much experience. Unfortunately, I do not do this very often. To be able, you have to be quick in your emotions, to do this. Say, 1 second, I'm really angry here, or I'm really sad, or I'm really frightened. What am I really frightened of? The Baal Shem Tov used an example of a dog that comes and barks at you, or Mechael Meir Chernobyl. Talks about a dog comes and barks at you, and you're scared. What are you scared of? What is fear, Bichla? Fear is an emotion that you can take and say, right now I'm afraid, but what am I really afraid of? I'm afraid of Hashem. And the dog was just an opportunity. The dog was like an opening for that. The dog was an opportunity for you to tap into your fear of Hashem, not of the dog. So this is a major motion in experiencing. I would guess our connections to Hashem in all kinds of ways. This is how Chassidut talks about these things. And I think he's referencing it here too, that the time has to do with the prophecy. Right? This couldn't happen in the summer, in the winter per se. What's happening to Shlomo now, this appearance, this spiritual experience, it happens dafka in the summer. Because the specific one he's talking about now is a spring more, a spring type of thing. So this is a concept I wanted to bring out, and the next concept he brings here in Pasuk Yud Daled, he reminds us that this isn't a real prophecy. Okay, that Shlomo has received here a minor prophecy, and wants to divide the two. He says, he takes a look at the psukim that they're mentioned. So the first pasuk, if it goes back to Perek Aleph, he says, what happened there? There Shlomo asked Chochmah, remember? That was what he asked for. He has a dream. Hashem asked him, what do you want me to give you? And he says, I want Chochmah. And we said that was a huge, that was a real straight out, flat out prophecy. Hashem appears to him, and he says, Chochmah is be'emet a very high level. What happens in this one? In this one, Hashem appears to him. Let me read it to you. What happens here? We have Malachim Aleph, right? Perek Gimel. In this one, not Perek Gimel. Sorry. Perek Vav. Vayidvar Adonai el Shlomo lemor. The word of Hashem to Shlomo was saying, Habayit hazer asher ata boneh, im telech bechukotai. If you follow my rules and my laws, and you will keep all my mitzvot, then I will keep what I said to you about David, and I will be with Bnei Israel, and I won't leave Am Yisrael. Very short. That's all. That's like 2 psukim. It's 2 psukim. Say that? Besides an introduction. Says the Malbim, what is the ikar of what he talks to him? Now he talks about the practical, the lasot et the mitzvot. That's what it is. It's to do the mitzvah. That's what this prophecy is for. The previous prophecy was a more, esoteric kind of thing. It was more the experience and the thing. This experience is an experience to do. He wants, Shlomo, I want this for you to be active after this prophetic. Again, the prophetic experience itself is almost in limbo, right? It's almost the right way. So you leave the world. You have nothing to do with anything, your body, your senses, you have to leave everything. And it's sort of like contemplation on the super, super high level. This one, you're still in the world. We said Shlomo didn't purify his body yet. He's still part of what's going on here. And says the Malbim, so this prophecy, was on this lower level, really is more attuned to this element of man, what he calls yir'ah. And now he plays off the chokhmah and the yir'ah. So he quotes in Pirkei Avot. It says like this: Im en yir'ah, en chokhmah. Im en chokhmah, en yir'ah. Ki ha-chokhmah kodem el ha-yir'ah kdimat hasiba. Ki lo amaretz chasid. It says, in the chronological order, first comes chokhmah and then yir'ah. Because if you're not wise, then you won't be afraid. Right? What should I be afraid of? What is there to be afraid of? Yirah is awe. If you don't know, right? A child who walks into a great leader, you just sit down and play with his toys right there. He doesn't know what's going on there. How do you know what's happening? That's through chokhmah. That's the first one. He says, chronologically, chokhmah comes before yirah. But the tachlitit is, as he calls it, the tachlit is for the yirah. What Hashem wants you to have is yirah. Yirat Hashem is the matzav that we really want man to be in. To get to yirah, you need chokhmah. It has to go that way. But the tachlit, the point, I'm missing my word for tachlit. The purpose of man is for him to yirat Hashem. Okay? Ze kol adam, right? Yirat Hashem. That's right. The end of Kohelet, right? Sof davar kol nishma et Elohim yirah et mitzvotav shmor ki ze kol adam, right? Et Elohim yirah. Fear Hashem. This is what we really want to get to. And then he goes into a fascinating discussion Well, first of all, remember I told you about the kol and the mar'eh? So he says the mar'eh is chokhmah, and the kol is yirah. That's how he divides the two, okay? The mar'eh is the essence, the chokhmah. We said that the first prophetic experience of absolute of Hashem, but in that sense, it is a disconnect from reality. The purpose of man in this world is to act in this world, to do the mitzvot, to function here. To do that, you need yirah. Chokhmah is a level that it's not practical almost. It's necessary. It has to be done. It has to form and figure the yirah. But if you're only in chokhmah, you're not what Hashem wants. You need to get to yirah. That's really what we're getting to, and that's what Shlomo gets here. So I'll add on to what the Malbim is saying, which is it's fascinating. The Malbim keeps going back and forth. What's better and what's worse, or what's higher and lower. He's like playing around, like with all different terms, first and second, purpose, the purpose, and the what you get, what helps you get to the purpose. Different parts of the soul. He's going back and forth here. It's not so orderly what the Malbim is doing here, but he's sort of again like trying to. You see him like trying to grasp the different elements of prophecy that are happening here. Yeah, Moshe, you want to say something?
Yeah, I have two quotes from that comes to my mind. Is Yirat Hashem Chokhmah appears over and over in Tanakh.
Okay.
So how can we compare? Because according to this, in order to
Reshit Chokhmah Yirat Hashem.
No, this is Yirat Hashem Reshit Chokhmah. I mean, first you need to acquire it Yirat in order to get.
So which was what they said, right? En Yirah, en Chokhmah, en Chokhmah, en Yirah. So he had the Pirkei Avot says both of them. So it's sort of strange, right? En Chokhmah, en Yirah, en Yirah, en Chokhmah. How does that work?
But
Is that
the thing is the other priority of how, because it seems like in order to find or to get into Chokhmah, you first came Yirat. Without Yirat, you cannot get into Chokhmah. It's impossible.
Okay, so there's obviously right to just sit in contemplation without fixing your midot and being there. It can't be the chokhmah we're talking about. It's not something you can get in a university or by reading books or by I don't know what, listening to podcasts. It's not where you're going to get your chokhmah. So Moshe is pointing out that there needs to be some emotional. Awe of Hashem that needs to be present there in order to appreciate the Chokhmah and be able to receive the Chokhmah in the first place. I agree. That's the game they're playing for here with. But again, here the Malbim, again, in this specific case, he's saying they're chronologically Chokhmah comes before Yirah. That's what's going to happen. Which I agree. There's an element of what you're saying, and the pshat of Pirkei Avot is like what you were saying, that you need both of them. It's some kind of combination of both. But he dafka chooses to go this way. In this sense, again, it doesn't mean he's going to stay here the whole time. Since he's playing around with the different functions, he can change it next time, and it will be okay. Or also, but I want to just point out one more thing here of the thing. He says he differentiates between truth and falsehood, and good and bad. Okay, this is a chalukah that the Rambam talks about when explaining Gan Eden. We try to understand what Adam and Chava knew before they ate from Eitz Hadat, and what happened after they ate from Eitz Hadat. This is pretty much how he defines it. He says there's true and false, and good and bad. Good and bad are in the world of relativity. Truth and false are objective. Okay? Chokhmah deals with the objective in that sense. It is the objective. It is in the world that is not part of the mix of good and evil. Tov v'ra. Okay? Yirah works in the world of Tov and Ra. That's where Yirah works in that sense. It is, again, Yirah in a very general sense of Avodat Hashem, I would say in that sense. The Avodah is to differentiate between what's right and what's wrong, what's good and bad. These are things, very hard things that you work in the world. These are things that work in the world. the I don't know, the monk who sits and contemplates the great truths as opposed to falsehoods, that's a different kind of experience. It's been met a higher experience on the one hand, but it doesn't help us play out here in reality. So there. So he's talking about these two levels that both need to be in play in man's experience of the world. So there.
It could also be in this case, for example, in Iraq, because I can remember from Tanya that says the minimum, the basic level of Iraq is pachad.
Right, that's Yirat Onesh, right? He talks about.
So it's just kind of the minimum level. So in that level, meaning is about 13 principles.
Yeah, I don't think he's referencing that level at all here.
Yep.
I think he's talking about Yirat Memut, the higher level of Yirah. Yeah, I don't think he's even approaching Yirat Onesh here.
Oh.
Okay. You understand what Moshe was talking about? There are two levels that Tanya talks about: fear of punishment, and there's awe of Hashem. So it's called Yirat Tata, a lower Yirah, and a Yirat Ilah, a higher Yirah. I don't think he's even referencing the Yirat Tata, the lower Yirah. I think he's way above that. Beseder. Okay. The ending here. Echazulanu. So here we have the ending here of how prophecy sort of works. Okay. Not that we haven't done that until now, but this is another statement of how prophecy works. And he talks here about the pasuk, which seems a little strange, right? He talks about the foxes. The foxes that are going off, they seem to be damaging the crops and the kramim. So he tries to make a thing. So let's take a look here. And this goes into this element. So the Malbim, who is talking about this to someone, the Malbim, defined what he's going to see before he saw it almost. I'm going to be careful what I'm saying. Okay? In other words, his explanation of what each one of the songs are, how each one is going to define a specific prophetic experience that Shlomo HaMelech, the human, had in historical context of this was then and this is then, and marking them down. So once he does that, he sort of has to explain the psukim according to what he was doing. Okay? There is always a danger in doing something like that. Okay? There's we call it the hermeneutical circle. Hermeneutic circle, which is once I define something as something, we talked about at the very beginning of the book when we learned about it. Remember? What?
You put like a boundary, you can't go.
Well, it's not a boundary. We first of all, right, you can't leave the boundary, but also I defined it. If I said this is what this is talking about, well, now I have to explain every single element inside that definition according to what I defined. Even if it doesn't always work so well. Even if it doesn't explain it, then I'm sort of stuck and I have to explain things in a certain way. You understand what I'm saying? No, I'm going to say it again. If I define that chapter 3 is about Shlomo's prophetic experience in this specific historical context, now I'm going to have to explain every single pasuk there in that context. If I defined it a priori before I said this is what it's about, now I'm forced to explain every pasuk there in the context. Okay? While as maybe if I read every pasuk and then I decided what it's talking about, I may not have gotten to the same decision. So that's what I'm talking about.
Like you have like the full context, and then it's not always work all the time. It's
right.
Like sometimes if you push yourself, it will not do like the same thing that you did before.
I'm talking about it's the commentary.
Yeah.
In other words, if I'm giving commentary, I'm forced now to explain every single pasuk here in the context of the title that I gave this part. I think sometimes I feel in the Malbim that he forced himself to have to explain some things because he was inside this thing. Now, what? Because he defined it, so now he's going to have to explain every single pasuk according to that. Sometimes I feel like it works better. Sometimes I feel like it works worse. He's saying great things no matter what. But so let's take a look. And now this one, the mashal, he's going to give it in the context of what he's talking about. Yeah.
Is it out of the context.
It's never out of the context, but it's sometimes you have to squeeze the words to mean certain things that they whatever. Listen to the next one. Okay, this next one is pretty powerful. Okay, so this is talking about the foxes. Okay, the last pasuk, the foxes that go and they damage the crops. Okay, says the Malbim, pasuk tetvav. I'm going a little quicker than usual here than going through the pasukim. Echezu. Right, I remind you guys that the Raya, the beloved, the soul, has not left the city. What's the city? The body, right? I haven't left the body. You should know what the word gvia is by now. Gvia is the body, okay? Shlomo's soul has not left the body. This is not a complete prophetic experience. This is a halfway experience. Right. So as he reminds us that that's what we're talking about. Okay, we're in the half prophecy. והפסוק הזה מצייר איך התייחדה נפש שלמה עם דודו העליון והוא עדיין בגבייה. ואיך לא השפיטו בנות הגבייה וכוחותיה את הדיבוק הזה. So this pasuk talks about how Shlomo manages to have a prophetic experience when he's not in the ultimate prophetic state. How does he do that? He's not disconnected. The whole first chapter he talked about how he disconnects, and that's the whole point, is to disconnect. Now he's in this prophetic. How does that work? How do you manage to do that? So now he's going to talk about the well, let's take a look. We'll see how he does it, okay? Misaper, and so he's explaining now how the powers of the body didn't stop him. Lichora, what he said before, the powers of the body always confuse you and they limit you. Right? That was the bikar, the problem. They limit you. So what does he do here? So I'm in the third line here. Misaper, ki nefesh Shlomo shelcha et kochot hagvia le'echoz shualim ktanim mechablim kramim. So here he says, Shlomo, the soul, the holy soul, the godly soul, sent the powers of the body on a wild goose chase, sort of. He sent them. What's that? He said shualim are right. We said mechablim. We said is to damage, right? The chabel is damages, chabalot, terrorists. So he's going to say what Shlomo did is he used the powers of the body, and he said, "Go think of other things, sort of. Go deal with other things, and let me be, me the soul. Let me be." That's the soul talking. That's sort of the line. So let's see how he plays it out. Okay, it's a little strange. HaShualim hu atziur lekochot adimyon. The shualim are imagination. Ki hapikhut shel hashoal. The shual, the fox is always seen as like he's wise, right? Or what would be a better word for a fox?
Cunning.
He's cunning, right? The fox is cunning. Okay, that's pikhut. He's a cunning fox. Ba mitzad koach dimyono. יותר מיתר בעלי חיים לחשוב ערמומית בעזר כוח המדמה שלו. The fox is imaginative. He's cunning. He manages to think of things that other animals don't think of. Again, this is what he's saying here, okay? ובעת תהיה נבואה בלתי שלמה. And in the situation that we're in, when the prophecy is not whole, שהנפש לא התפשטה מן הגבייה, and the soul has not left the powers of the body, אז יתערבו מחזות כוחות הדמיון עם השגות השכל. Then what happens? The imagination mixes up with the mind. And then that's how you get imagery of prophets. Most prophets, he say, are in this in-between state where they're not the ultimate prophecy. Their prophetic experience is one where their imagination is involved. And that's why, what do they see? They see images. A lot of prophets, they tell them, I saw this. Yirmiyahu begins, right, with seeing a Mechael Sheked, seeing a Sir Nafuach. They see things. Says the Malbim, that's a mix in between the imagination and the prophetic experience that is in the mind. Okay? That, he says, is a certain level of prophecy. A not high level of prophecy, in between stage of prophecy. Okay? That's how they see pictures and images. כמו שנאמר, וביד הנביאים אדמה. Right? It's a pasuk in Hosea. We actually learned it. In the hands of the Nevi'im, I will be imagined. Adameh. שזה בא מצד תערובת כוח הדמיון. ואז בעת התעסקו בנות החומר בציורי הדמיון ובתנועותיו, יפשיט השכל ההשגה הזכה, אשר ישיג על ידי שפע השם השופע עליו, וישיג ברוח השם עליו. He says, this is an ability. He says it's a fascinating commentary on prophecy. He says that what the prophet does in his imagery is he keeps the imagination busy, focused on trying to bring an image into life, and it allows him as a second level to detach from the imagination, leave the imagination thinking, viewing thing, and for him to experience the prophecy. You understand what I'm saying? It's getting a little complex here. In other words, the imagination starts thinking or imaging, putting mamash images into what he saw, be it what it is. But that's not the essence of the experience of the prophecy. That's a way, I would say, even like a trick. That's what he talked about. He's talking about the shualim, about the cunning foxes. It's a trick to keep the imagination busy. And so it doesn't come and mix up into the experience of prophecy itself. The experience of prophecy itself, as we said, is immutable. You can't say it. You can't talk it. You can't verbalize it. Remember, that's what we talked about in Perek Aleph. That's a problem. You can't verbalize the prophecy. It's so unique that it sends. But what do you do when the imagination keeps on wanting to give it pictures? So what he says is, you send the imagination off to try to bring an image. That's fine. Image away. But leave me alone. That's sort of what it says. Let me experience something above it. So in that way, what I would say is a fascinating thing. A prophecy of Yirmiyahu, a prophecy of Yeshayahu has two parts. It has what Yirmiyahu manages to give over to us. That's what we have. That's what we can grasp. But that's not all that Yirmiyahu grasps or Yeshayahu grasps. They grasp something deeper than that. They grasp something higher than that, which I would say is infused in their prophecy in a way that I'm not sure how we unpack. Okay? When we deal with the prophecies of the prophets, this is the Rabbi Piasetzna talks about this in an interesting book called Mavor HaShirim, that if we had a couple of years to learn, we would sit and learn. He talks about Mamash, what happens in prophecy also. But what he's saying here is that they're the prophecies we read and we're inspired by, and we're right when we read in Yeshayahu or Yirmiyahu or Yechezkel or whatever they are, and we were inspired by their words and their imagery. That's sort of the outer shell of what actually happened to them. What actually happened to them was much more than that. The Rabbi Piasetzna says sometimes you can access the inner prophecy through the imagery. The imagery is like a call to go in deeper. But he says, but it was a practice that the prophets would use to be able to deepen their experience, send off the imagery, work on imagery, image things, so that I can free myself to actually experience Hashem. That's sort of the movement, and that's what he does with the shualim. That's what happens here. Since this prophetic experience was a limited one, Shlomo is within the world. It's not the highest prophetic experience. He sends off the imagination. Again, these are the shualim to go and image themselves. The foxes. Use your imagination, you foxes, and be there, and sort of allow me to try to reach a higher level of prophecy. So, now, is this the pshat of this pasuk? This is an interesting reading. That's what I was saying about sort of forcing the pasuk into it. But whatever it is, it's a great explanation of how we use our imagery in the connection with this. Yes, sir.
When did I recognize that this imagery that they're seeing is a prophecy? It's like sometimes when you're like imagining it's maybe
So I think it starts. I think it starts from the other side. Oh, is that like a gift, a peace offer, a peace offering? We're coming late. Okay. No, so I think from what he's saying here, it sounds like the prophetic experience begins first. There is like a revelation, but when the prophet's not clean, it sounds bad, right? He's on a super high level, but he's not completely separated from his worldly, his bodily faculties. Then he has to use his imagination to image something. Otherwise, they will affect the experience of Hashem. That's what it happens. But it starts from a movement inside or from above. Okay, then the imagination comes in. That's the way it's supposed to be. I bet that with Nevi'ei Sheker, this is where things are going to go off. Okay, Nevi'ei Sheker, these things that may start from what you're talking about also, like. How quickly do you go to the imagery? How much do you think the imagery is the whole story as opposed to the soul of the imagery, which is the prophetic experience? There, they may make mistakes. I'm thinking of myself, what happens there. In other words, since there is imagery in prophecy, the question is the imagery the prophecy? Or is the imagery a lower part or a separate part or outer part of the prophecy itself? And I imagine many people, when they had this imagery working, let's say, if we use the Malbim's model here, Hashem would appear to us right now, okay? Halavai. Hashem would appear to us. Right now, I'm not sure how separated we are from our faculties, from our physical faculties. I'm not sure. I know that I had Josh is not separate at all. I just came from a big meal. I'm tired. Whatever. We're not there. We're not in our perfect place. Okay. Hashem would appear to us now, and we would have these images. Our imagination, without us knowing, Bichlal, would like latch on to this and start presenting pictures almost. Because that's what it does. That's how it knows how to work, the imagery. That's how it would be infused with the godly, with Ruach Hashem, and start imaging immediately. We wouldn't at that point be able to differentiate between sort of what Hashem really wants from us right now and from what we see and what we experience. Our imagination would take over us in a sense. That's what I would think would happen if it would happen to us now. And that probably happened in some way to the false prophets. Okay? And they would image things. So that's what it says. That's why, at least the way I understand it. You could say they were just liars. It's hard for me to believe that that's what we're talking about. They were just liars. It just doesn't fit into the, amen. It doesn't fit into the picture that we see there, at least from what I understand. These were people who were serious people. It's interesting, Dafka Yirmiyahu, sometimes when he bashes some of the false prophets, not the great Hananiah ben Azur, who I don't know who's here with when we learn Yirmiyahu and Perek Kafchet, right? The great clash with the false prophet Hananiah ben Azur. There it's not clear be'emet who's the prophet and what's going on and if it's right or not. No, but later, the chapter afterwards, which I think we stopped at Hananiah ben Azur, the chapter after that, there is all the other false prophets, and then Yirmiyahu just bashes them. And part of what he bashes them with, because he says they're committing adultery and they're like things that no one knows about, that he knows because he's a prophet. He says they're doing these bad things. And therefore their imagery, and how I'll interpret it now after learning the Malbim, their imagery is completely off. Okay, these people are sinning. And then they receive some kind of divine anything, or they think they do. Oh my gosh, their imagery is completely off. But someone who's tahor, he could be Yalaghu. Yirmiyahu's not sure about Hananiah ben Azur, according to some of the Perushim there. Right? He's not sure if this guy really received a prophecy or not. But he could contemplate that it could be. It could be that he received a prophecy. It means this guy, Hananiah ben Azur, was on a high level. He was a serious guy. Yirmiyahu says, you know what, maybe he did, right? Ulevai, right? Remember he says, halvai, that you're right. I hope you're right. But if he was the other prophets, he has no assumption. He knows they're wrong. So I'm just saying this is when you're so when your body is so in now, body isn't only body. We'll see in Paragimel, body is like everything, all of who we are. That's why he calls it a city, right? The ear, right? The ear it includes lots of things. Our body includes lots of faculties. All of them are limitations. All of them are limitations according to the Malbim. Okay? And they all try to translate the prophetic experience into the tools that they can translate it. They be it a motive or minds or whatever it is. All of them limit the prophetic experience. But here in this case, when your body is there, en malasot, this prophecy is a part-time prophecy. It's a middle prophecy. Shlomo isn't really ready for it. So the way to maximize this experience will be to tell the mind to image what it can image, and free me up at least to try to experience the divine here in this instance. That's what's happening. Chazulanu shualim, it's a command. Echazulanu, go, shualim, go. It's not a tell. Well, usually you read Echazulanu shualim tanim, you read it as a event that happened. They grabbed, they did this, they hurt our vineyards. That seems to be the pshat. Here he says, go and do this. He's sending them off to the vineyards. No. Because, okay. So not litasek by the third line from the bottom on the second to last page here, right? Litasek b'dimyonot asher yafitz az koach hamedame v'yolid machazot v'dimyonot. ובעוד עסקו בנות החומר בדמיונות האלה, הפשיט השכל מטעם השגתו הזכה הנבואית, והתייחדה הנפש עם דודה. It removed these layers of physicality and got together with its dod. בסדר? בסדר. בסדר. So he says that I'm going to jump to the next two psukim. He says, as this is happening, he's still as he's still dealing with trying to send out the things, he realizes it's not internal. He's not at the level where the prophecy could come from inside. It comes from above. That's why he says, Dodi li ve'ani lo. It starts with my beloved is for me, as opposed to me for it, because it's a top bottom revelation here, not a bottom top revelation. And the end, he says, Ad she'afuach hayom. Look at pasuk Yud Zayin, the very last one. Chibur hazeh nevui lo yimashech zman rav. This connection cannot be for a long time. Rak ad she'yitgaber chom hayom, until it gets hot. What does hot mean? Zot militza al yigberu tivei hachomer. The physicality of the body is going to be powerful and going to overcome the experience. Uminagav sheyiafu bnot achomer litasek b'asaga dimyonit. The imagination that's been trying to deal with these things, it will get tired and then return, come back. And once it comes back onto you, onto the soul, that's it. The soul is gone. The connection is disconnected. ואז ינוס הצדדים שהם חזיונות המדמה שיסורו את יתעורר החומר וטבעיו לשוב לענייניו הגופניים. Everything returns to the bodily functions. ואז יסתלק הדוד העליון. And then the higher beloved leaves. ונפסק הדיבור מפי בנות הגבייה וכוחותיה ששבו להתעסק בצורכיהם. Man returns to have to deal with his bodily functions and his wants, and his needs, and his lusts. And Hashem cannot stay in that. The Dod Elyon, the higher level of Hashem. Remember, the soul always remains, the Neshama always there. So there's always an element of godliness that's always in him. Because the Dod Elyon, the higher level of the beloved, he separates and disappears. Ken yashuv al nefesh shlomo kepam pam kol et tiyeh muchenet l'hasaga. He says, it will go away, but it will be like a tzvi. What did he say about the tzvi? Do you remember what he said about the tzvi? The tzvi looks backwards, remember? He said the tzvi runs and it looks backwards. So he says, Sov d'melecha dodi litzvi. Go, I understand. Sov, turn around, go. my beloved, I realize you have to leave. I realize it's over. But please be like a tzvi. Be like a tzvi who's always looking back and waiting for the next time that you could reconnect. That's how this parak ends, okay? And then he says, Hadod ha'elyon shav el me'on kodsho. You see the very last line here. The Dod ha'elyon, the higher, the elevated beloved, goes back to his place of Kodesh. And that is the end of this prophecy. So if we'll sum up these two chapters that we've learned, that the Malbim is divided, not according to the chapters, but he divided into two different prophetic experiences. The first one is the ultimate, Yeshakeni mineshikot piu, the actual getting kissed by the beloved himself. Yain, a lot of yain in the first chapters, right? Here, he's only in the vineyards, he's not actually tasting the wine. The Malbim talks about it. He's not really there. It's sort of like a semi. There still is a prophetic experience here. Hashem talks to Shlomo, Yomer Hashem el Shlomo. Right there is some connection. It's just not the always say the pure and perfect experience that he wants. Next prophetic experience is going to be another real prophetic experience. That's going to be when Shlomo builds Beit HaMikdash. And at the end of chapter 8 and 9, there Hashem will really appear to Shlomo again. And the Malbim will talk about how that the idea of the Mikdash is to make permanent Hashem's presence. Okay, this is the idea. Now he's going to start, since the Mikdash is what there is. The Mikdash is going to play a lot of in the imagery of the next chapters. He's going to connect them a lot, right? If you guys see how it starts off, right? Mizot olam min hamidbar kitimrot ashan. This is the beginning of the pasuk. Then up in the end, towards the end of Perek Gimel, apir Yonasalo Amelech Shlomo me'atzei halevanon. Beit HaMikdash is called Beit HaLevanon. He's going to be playing off a lot of the terms there that have to do with Beit HaMikdash as an attempt of man to permanent connection with Hashem. That's the idea of the Mikdash. It's going to teach us a lot about the Mikdash, Dafka. Okay? The next chapters are going to teach us almost more about the Mikdash than about prophecy. Now, even though he's going to be talking about prophecy, because that's what the whole book is about, it's going to be a kind of a commentary on what the Mikdash was supposed to be. The Mikdash wasn't just a place for service, it was a place that was supposed to somehow keep us focused on the prophetic level as long as we could. That's what he's going to deal with. I think we'll stop now. Be'ezrat Hashem.